The fourth logo in our sequence is the top hat design, and so let's take care of that now. I'm going to go over to my assignment page, and I'll click on the intermediate processes continued. It's this guy right here, so I'll just click over it and save image as, and navigate over to my folder 3. There it is, and I'll save the image for top hat. Okay, back in Illustrator, I'll bring that image in. We've been bringing it in on the same template layer that we started with, so I'm going to just unlock that, select it, and go to File and Place. There he is. Remember, you don't have to click on the template option here unless you want it to come in on its own layer, its own template layer. But I'll just put it over here along with the others and move it down so I've got plenty of space to work. I want to remember always to lock that template, to create a new layer, give it a name, and that's how we can get started. There's what I did in my layers panel. Okay, now I've got the template layer locked. I've got the new layer ready to draw on. I want to be sure to select that. And then zoom in on this design. This one's actually pretty simple. There's some kind of neat stuff about it that's kind of fun to do. To draw this, I usually start with the triangle. You could start with the hat, whatever you want to do. But under the rectangle tool, you may remember we have a polygon tool. And for drawing triangles, the polygon tool is really good. Just click. Instead of drawing, just click. That way you can change the number of sides to just the number that you need, 3 for a triangle. Okay, came in with my default colors. I'll go ahead and switch those to black fill. No stroke. Okay, and with my selection tool, I'll just flip this over. Now I notice I'm using a yellow construction line here, and I really don't like that, so I'm going to change the color of my construction by double clicking here next to the layer. You double click there, this window pops up. You can change it to something that's a little easier to see. How about brown? That's a little easier to see. On that black, it's not maybe perfect, but it's better than yellow. Yellow is bad with the white. Okay, now I'm just going to stretch this down and maybe make it a little wider, and back up if I need to. Just trying to get it sort of approximately that triangular shape. Now, to add a bit of these sort of rounded corners on it, the way I do it is to add a stroke in the same color that I'm using. Make the stroke a little bigger, and then change the cap or the join on the stroke. This little link right here, if you look in the lower right, you'll see it take effect, and it just adds a little round join here on the shape. Okay, and you can make it more pronounced if you make the stroke a little bit heavier. Now, if you don't want to have a fill and a stroke, you can combine those two. You can go to Object, Path, and outline the stroke. So now the stroke is separate from the fill, and while they're both selected, go back into your Pathfinder panel and unite them. That's a way to get a round-cornered triangle with no stroke. Okay. All right. You don't have to do it that way. Either way is fine. Okay. So now I've got this. I want to look at my preview. You can see that again the drawing is not perfect. I maybe have it a little bit big now. But let me just kind of close this up. Okay, you can see that the drawing is not perfect, but that's okay. We want to make ours as perfect as possible. Okay, for that necktie, Here's an idea. For the necktie, use the first deselect, then select your pen with a white fill and a black stroke. Now just thinking about that, I could have just typed a D. If I back up, type a D. Remember that's the default, is white fill with black stroke. Pen tool. And watch what happens. I'll switch back to preview here. And I guess I got to see the bottom of the tie first. I'll click here, then I'll click here, then I'll click here, then I'll click here, then I'll click back over on the original anchor point. And look what that does. It makes a almost perfect necktie for us. You just have to maybe add a little thickness to the stroke, change the joins so they're round. For some reason they just look better when they're round like that. Now the other thing is that depending on where you clicked, it may not be symmetrical. So I'm going to select these top 2 points. I'm going to use my object path average and make them averaged on the horizontal. Okay, that just kind of helps them be about the same size. Then I'll click here, and I'll click here, and I'll do the same thing, object path average horizontal. That makes the tie a little bit closer to a uniform symmetrical tie. Now you could put your grid back up. You could put the grid on. My grid is not showing. Let's see what's wrong with that. Oh, you know what it is? I'm zoomed in too close, maybe. Yeah, the grid won't show on top of a template graphic. Now you can change that. If you go to Illustrator, Preferences, Guides and Grid, you can put the grid in front by deselecting Grid and Back. And now you can see a grid on there, and you can use it to make sure that the distance from this grid unit to that one is about the same, and the distance from that grid unit to that grid unit is about the same. Now, you will need to make sure that your graphic is centered on the grid first. Mine just happens to be pretty close, and that's good. Otherwise, go into your Layers panel, unlock your template layer, and center it on the grid first thing. Okay, I was lucky. Mine came out pretty close to symmetrical on the fly, you might say. So I'm just going to use this white arrow to select here, and I'll just kind of move this one in. Add the shift key just so I don't slip off my horizontal. That gives me the same angle here and here if I make sure that the distance from this grid unit to that is the same, and this one to that is the same. You see what I'm saying? Okay. Okay. In preview, it looks like this. The grid now out in front, which I don't usually do, but when you're working on these tracings, you got no grid at all if you don't put it out in front. Okay, so I'm kind of done with that for now. I'll just go ahead and continue. Okay, now, I don't know, I'm kind of thinking maybe that should have a little bit fatter stroke on it, so I want to make it just a little bit fatter. Okay. All right, now, you can see that looks quite a bit like the drawing. Okay, now for the hat, for the top hat, it's in, looks like 3 pieces. There's 1, and then 2, and then 3. It's kind of got a lazy kind of look to it. I'm going to use my rectangle tool, my ellipse tool, and with the Smart Guides turned on, you see how you can find the center of your tie and the center of the triangle. See how that works? Okay. Now, getting it near center here, we'll go straighten all that stuff up in just a minute. Just draw an ellipse. This time use just the Option key and draw an ellipse out here that looks like this. Make it the right width. Okay, now this is a dark fill without a stroke, so I'm just going to take the stroke off, add a black fill. Okay? And to get that sort of lazy look to it, take your white arrow and just select this anchor point, shift, and select this anchor point. And then with the down arrow, you can just kind of tip the edges down like that. Now if that doesn't look quite right, it looks maybe too skinny right here, you can fix it in your outline view. Any of these anchor points can be selected, but so can these handles. And so I'm just going to pull on this handle right here, hold the shift key, or use the Smart Guides, and make it a little fatter right there. Then I'll grab this side, click it and drag it the other way. Smart Guides helping me stay on the horizontal, and make it a little fatter right there. You can also grab this guy, maybe move it up a little bit, and that'll give you a little bit more of that downward tip on that hat. Now, you can continue to work on that until you're really happy with it. If you think, if it needs to be shorter or if it needs to be droopier or whatever, you can make it so. Okay, up here, that is a kind of an odd shape. I think maybe use, I don't know, there's a lot of different ways you could just do a pen tool and do it like that, but to make it more symmetrical, I think I'll stick with my rectangle. Again, you can find the center by using Smart Guides, and you see them there. Click and drag, then just Option without the shift, just Option, and draw a rectangle out here that is about the size that you need. Remember, you can add your thumb to the space bar if you need to move it up, and then you can continue to draw. Okay, so it's a little off center here, so I'm just going to leave it right there like that. Now I can recenter that by clicking on the center mark, and then you can see I'm lined up now with the brim of the hat. Pardon me. Okay, now to get this soft curve, that looks like a job for the reshape tool. So I'm going to click right there, and I'm going to try to come up straight from here and just add an anchor point right there. Click. Okay. Then with the direct selection tool, I'll select just that anchor point, and I can kind of move that down, and you can see the angle kind of tipping up on the edge. For these corners, I'll click here, and I'll count clicks as I 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I'm going to stop right there because it looks like that whole left side needs to come in. Okay, then I'll count 11 this way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, notice that the drawing is off a little bit again. We talked about that, how it's important to try to improve on the drawing. Okay, and actually I think if I select this whole object, I could make it a little narrower by clicking right here. If I hold the Option key down, notice how it gets narrower on both sides. Great work, great tool there. The Option along with the selection tool, and you can change it in one dimension. Okay, if you add Shift, it'll change it in both dimensions. But if you just use the Option by itself, it just changes it in one dimension. Now, I'm going to select that with my selection tool just so I got some stroke options up here, because I really do think it'll look better if I add a stroke and then do like we've been doing, make it fatter, and then change the stroke join so that it's got that rounded look. Okay, can you see how that's beginning to look a little bit more like our hat in the drawing? Okay, now you may think, well, that maybe need a curve right here. I kind of agree with you. I'm going to add a reshape tool anchor right here. Remember, the nice thing with the reshape tool is it adds curved anchors. So I'll just select that anchor point, and I'll use my up arrow key to kind of give myself just a little curve that sort of parallels that one. Let's see how that looks in outline in the preview. It looks pretty good. I might just set the whole thing up, just send it up with a single click of my arrow. And again, trying to kind of improve on what's really drawn there. I think probably that's going to look pretty good. Let's turn off the template and see what we think. Yeah, I don't know, maybe this needs to go back down. I'm always kind of double checking, changing my mind about things and double guessing about things. Okay, what's the word I'm really trying to say here? second guessing. That's the word I'm looking for. Okay. All right. So I've turned the template back on. Now I can see through it. There's a little stroke right here that of a highlight on the hat, and rather than trying to put that into the fill of the hat, I think I would probably just do it with, I'll deselect and I'll use that arc tool. Let's see if the arc tool will work here. I'm going to take off the fill. Actually, the arc tool doesn't have a fill unless you tell it to. So I'll change the stroke to white. And let's just see how the arc tool works here. If I go this way, it strokes that way. If I press a key, is it V? No. No. Okay, now I've forgotten it. If you press on a certain key, it'll curve in the other direction. Well, we can always do it up that way. My memory's not helping me out here. There is a keyboard shortcut where you can change the direction of that arc. I was kind of wanting it to go the opposite direction on the down. But what I'll do is I'll just draw it up from the bottom. And I'm going to draw it below the hat and up this way. Okay. Okay. Let's see how that looks. I'll change the stroke to white. Thought I already did that. You make it a little fatter, and it kind of looks like that. Okay. Now you can add rounded ends to that if you need to. You can change the angle of it by using the selection tool, or remember you can also use the direct selection tool. Click on it, click on an anchor point of it, and you've got the little handles, so you can change it this way as well. Okay, so you'll probably want to do that in outline view to get it to match in. I don't know, I think that's probably as good a way as any to add that little highlight that goes across there. It might look better, now that I think about it, it might look better if I select it with the selection tool and try one of these non-uniform strokes on it. Let's just see what happens if I do like that. Or, yeah, that's not really helping. Yeah, that's not really helping. I don't know, maybe it's, actually that one's not too bad. I'll just stick with that one and bring this down just a little bit. And this one up just a little bit. I kind of like that. It looks a little bit more kind of like a pen drawing. Okay. I'll let you decide how you want to deal with that. Maybe make my stroke a little fatter. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay. Now we got the top and the bottom and the hat, and I'm just going to try to speed up here a little bit because I'm going over my time. I do want to make sure that this is absolutely symmetrical. So I'm going to select all of the symmetrical parts. Now what I've got here is I've got the hat, not the stroke. The bottom, I've got the tie, and I've got the triangle. With them all selected, I'm going to go up here to my alignment and just click right here. And you'll see them adjust just slightly. That is just to make them more symmetrical. That's the move that we just made. Okay, so that looks good. Okay, for the buttons, I would suggest just an ellipse. Remember a shortcut L for ellipse. You can draw a perfect button with the shift key down till you get it the size that you want. Okay, make sure it's filled with white. Actually, right now it's showing stroke white. I'll just flip them with that little deal right there. Now it's a fill. It was there, and now it's there. Okay, so now I've got a one button. I just need another one. Option Shift to keep them in straight alignment. The third one, press Command D, and you've got the third one there. Now again, these should be on that same vertical alignment, and you may see it adjust just a little bit there. Okay, the type is very much like we've done before. Pick a font, just click anywhere. Do click away. If you try to click too close, it'll try to fill this area with type, or it'll try to draw on a path. Okay, so click away from it. Just a click, uppercase. Okay. For this one, I'm going to try to do it together with man. Okay, select all that, select that whole thing. Go up to your paragraph panel. If you look up here, you can set it so that it's centered. Okay. Now you'll want to make it much bolder. Let's see what the Myriad has for us. It's got a black, so that's really heavy. That'll probably work. Really dark. Okay. I also want the lines to be closer together. Under the character panel, you can select line spacing right here. It says line spacing. You just move them really close together. That's the way they are over here. Okay. Actually, this is a different font, but if you want to search around for a better font, I'd encourage you to do that. And then I'll just go back to my selection tool. Pardon me for messing that up. Go back to my selection tool, select, rotate, scale it up, hold the shift key while I'm doing that. Try to get it exactly the size and the angle that I want. If I need to rotate again a little bit. Okay, scale it up, holding the shift key down, tapping it into place, getting it really close up there next to that edge. That looks pretty darn good. Okay, outline view, just black and white this time. There, I'll turn off the template and we'll zoom in and see if you can get a Visible Man logo now that looks kind of like that.